Happy Halloween, and welcome to another very special episode of Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat. I'm your host, Steve the Cat. It's Halloween, and tonight we're doing something a little bit different. Instead of reviewing a movie in detail, we're going to talk about some of my favorite films from different horror genres. This is not a 10 best list, not a 10 worst list, and not a troll I've put together to get clicks. It's just a list of films that I have enjoyed over the years and recommend that all horror movie fans watch at least once. Some are big budget theatrical releases, some are old classics, and some might even be a tad obscure. But I've really enjoyed all of these films over the years. If you have not seen them, I highly recommend all of them. Gwen, Fancy, and Professor Fluffosaurus are busy tonight trick-or-treating and protecting Steve the Cat headquarters from the neighborhood teens, so we're just going to jump right into things. Thank you so much for spending your Halloween night with us. We're really glad that you're here. Now grab yourself a drink and some popcorn and strap in, because here we go. Hello and welcome to Steve the Cat's Halloween special. Happy Halloween. It is Halloween night. We have never done a show on Halloween night before, so we thought we'd do something a little different. I'm sure a lot of you are out with the little ones, or some of you are out at Halloween parties, so rather than do a new episode with a live watch party, we're just going to talk about some of my favorite horror movies. Now, this is not intended to be a list of 10 best horror movies or 10 worst horror movies or one of those clickbait lists that you see so many of on the internet. Just a list of some of my favorites that I thought I'd like to talk about. Before we get into it, let me talk a little bit about how I have organized the movies for this special. So I've broken things down into 3 categories. In the first category, we have slashers and serial killers. In the second category, we have ghosts and supernatural. And in the third category, we have creature features. Now, it's important to understand that those 3 categories are not hard and fast categories. In reality, they're points on a spectrum. You can think of it kind of like this, that you've got slashers, serial killers, ghosts and supernatural, and creature features, but you've got areas where they overlap with each other. So, slashers and serial killers, you have straight-up films such as Halloween and Scream. Ghosts and supernatural, you have straight-up films such as The Conjuring and The Exorcist. Creature features, you have straight-up films such as The Thing and Godzilla. But you also get into films that overlap between these different categories, such as, for example, anything with Freddy Krueger or Chucky. Okay, both of them were technically serial killers, but at the same time, they've become supernaturally powered, so they kind of fall into that region between slashers and serial killers and ghosts and supernatural. Similarly, I put zombies and undead in a separate region between ghosts and supernatural and creature features. I know a lot of people just put zombies into creature features. Historically, zombies did have supernatural origins, and for me, anything that's undead has kind of a supernatural aspect to it, even if it was created by science. Slashers and serial killers and creature features, a little more difficult to come up with something that in that overlap region, but if you think about it, the creeper from Jeepers Creepers might fall into there. Definitely a creature. It's not human. It's a monster. It has wings, but it operates very much like a serial killer, more so than a creature. And finally, you notice I don't have vampires on here. In my opinion, vampires pretty much goes in this region in the center that touches a little bit of everything. So vampires do have supernatural powers. They are creatures, but they operate a lot like slashers and serial killers. So for me, vampires can go into any or all regions of this diagram. So this is just a way I think of horror movies. You don't have to think of them the same way. I'm not saying this is the best way to categorize them. I'm just saying this is the way I've categorized them for this special we're doing tonight. So let's talk about some of my favorite films featuring slashers and serial killers.
I found the car. He's here.
Where?
He's 3 blocks down. You go around the back of the houses. I'll watch the front.
Tommy, hurry up! Tommy, please!
What's the boogeyman?
As a matter of fact, it was.
One of my all-time favorite horror films is the 1978 version of Halloween, the original, the iconic John Carpenter masterpiece. Now, I've talked about this film many times. You've heard me go on and on about this film. We reviewed it in the first season of Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat, getting you ready for the premiere of Halloween Kills a year ago. And we've talked about some of the sequels since then. Halloween 1978 did not invent the slasher genre. That honor goes to earlier films, Psycho, Black Christmas, any number of Italian slasher films, and others. But it did kind of raise the bar on slasher films, and it did kind of bring it more into the mainstream with it becoming actual commercial success. This film is actually part of the National Film Registry at the Library of Congress because of its impact upon American culture. So, more than just a little niche horror movie. Now, the thing about this film is it shows you that evil can come from anywhere. Now, historically, before this, horror movies, the villains always seemed to be the guy that you kind of knew was going to be a villain, or things always occurred in a situation where you could kind of expect horror stuff to occur. As long as you don't go into the creepy castle, nothing bad's going to happen to you. As long as you don't go to dinner with that strange man in the vampire outfit, nothing bad's going to happen to you. This film is different. You have a 6-year-old child who, for no reason, murders his sister, and you never find out why he did what he did. And it brings fear and death right to your front door and makes you feel like there is nowhere to hide. My favorite scene from Halloween is the scene where Jamie Lee Curtis is running across the street. She's trying to get back into the house, and there's Michael Myers just walking across the front yard towards her. He's not running, he's walking because it's like a foregone conclusion that he's going to get to her. And he doesn't care that he's in the front yard. People can see him. He doesn't care. There's no protection. The fact that you're in the suburbs does not protect you. The fact that you're touching the front door and you're on what would be considered home base when you were a kid playing tag, it doesn't matter. He's coming right at you anyway. It doesn't matter. There's nowhere to hide. It shows you what can be accomplished with tension and suspense as opposed to blood and gore. There is not a lot of blood and gore in the original Halloween. Yet there is violence, but there is not a lot of blood and gore. But yet there is a lot of tension and suspense.
Everyone in my family turns into a total nutcase this time of year. Does your grandma ever talk about it? Yeah, it's pretty much all she talks about. It defines her life.
How are you guys? I wouldn't celebrate either. I would just put up a Christmas tree instead. Just skip all over the creepy Halloween shit, right?
Gotcha.
It's not a cage, baby. It's a trap.
If you are looking for a modern slasher film, you would have a hard time finding a better one, in my opinion, than the 2018 version of Halloween. Now, technically this film is also called Halloween, but to avoid confusion with the original Halloween, I always refer to this one as Halloween 2018. Came out in 2018, as the name implies. This is a modern sequel slash reboot, so technically this is a direct sequel to the 1978 version of Halloween, but since it came out so much later, it kind of acts as a standalone reboot as well. So it builds upon the original film, and it establishes a new timeline. And the great thing about this film is there's no need for you to be familiar with any of the previous sequels. It basically retcons, for lack of a better word, all the other sequels, and it takes place directly after the original Halloween. And they give you enough exposition in this film that you can even watch it and understand what's going on without having watched the original 1978 version of Halloween. So I do recommend Halloween 1978, but if you've never watched it and you want to sit down and watch Halloween 2018, you should be able to without any confusion as to what's going on. It sets the stage with tension and suspense, but also adds elements of blood and gore. So different from the 1978 version of Halloween, this film does have a good bit of blood and gore to go with the violence, but it does still rely on tension and suspense as well. The great thing about this film is you have actual character development. You're going to care about at least some of the characters. Now, not all of them. Typical horror movies have at least one person who's intentionally unlikable that you root for when the bad guy gets them. This film has one of those as well, but at the same time, there are people that you will care about, and not all of them are going to make it. It's, in addition to that, well-paced, it looks great on screen, it sounds great on screen, and it's just, from a technical perspective, a great film for the viewer. It really looks good, it really sounds good. It really looks like it was made by a team of competent professionals.
Can't hear you.
William! Open the door! Martin!
I got it.
Yes, hello?
So you've probably heard of the Halloween series. A film that you may not have heard of is Malevolence 2: Bereavement. This is one of my favorite slasher serial killer movies, and it's on the list for several reasons. It's one of my favorites, first of all, because I think it is possibly the best prequel I have ever seen, and that is in any genre, not just horror. Now, the thing about Malevolence 2 is it works as a standalone film. There's no need to see Malevolence or the follow-up sequel to understand or enjoy this film. So don't be put off by that number 2 in the title. You can sit down and watch this as a standalone film without watching any of the other films in the series, and you get a full and complete understanding of the story, because this is not only a prequel, it's a really well done prequel, so it doesn't require you to know anything about the previous film or the subsequent films in order to really understand what's going on. It has outstanding character development. You will care about the characters, and you will feel very sad when some of the characters have horrible things happen to them. It is a very, very good film. There is very good acting. There is very good character development. In addition to that, you've got beautiful imagery throughout the film. Just the Lehigh Valley is just shot in these lovely panoramic shots all throughout the film. The film just looks terrific on screen. Like I said with Halloween 2018, it looks like it was made by competent professionals, and it just looks completely beautiful on screen. It is a dark film, and it is ultimately a very sad film, so it is not a popcorn film. So I don't recommend it if you're looking for a popcorn film, or if you're in the mood for something kind of light. But if you're in the mood for something dark and ultimately very sad, it is an outstanding movie, and I do recommend it. And now a word from our benevolent overlords at PBDC TV. your nightly heartbeat of horror.
Hello, all you beautiful people. It's your boy, Slippy. And when I'm not gouging my face down in gallons and gallons of ice cream, I'm watching PBDC TV. Yes, yes, the most amazing TV show out there. Now keep on watching. I love y'all. Mwah! Stay nasty.
Well, gentlemen, perhaps we wouldn't be where we are today if we hadn't said to ourselves, just go, 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 go for it.
This final score for this film, we're going to give it 3 paws out of 4.
Nuestra Señora de la Santa Muerte, Spanish for Our Lady of the Holy Death.
Out now!
Oh, not sex and violence!
Hi everybody, I'm Aka.
And I'm Pre-Sexist Diamond.
And we are Roots Bleed Red on Psycho Bunny Death Cult.
Aha!
In fact, humans have a very long history of eating each other.
So lock your doors, turn out your lights, and join us for Ghoul Radio.
This is Professor Edgar Fluffosaurus from Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat, and when I'm not hosting Monster Chat or knocking down small Japanese cities, I'm watching PBDC TV. Now back to the show.
So, having talked about slashers and serial killers, let's move on to ghosts and supernatural films.
It's 3 days till the opening of Hell House. Cue the strobers.
Strobers cued.
Tony. Whoa, shit, dude. What's up, man? Hey, man. How many freaks did we have?
3 freaks.
Everyone's a little stressed. Are you sure?
Positive.
Holy shit. I personally think we have no business being here. What are you looking at? Holy fuck!
One of my all-time favorite horror movies is Hell House LLC. It is possibly, in my personal opinion, the best found footage film I have ever seen. It is just outstanding. It is very scary from beginning to end, and a lot of times found footage films have trouble being scary because you don't have a lot of special effects, you don't have music in the background, you don't have, incidental music to build tension. Hell House LLC succeeds. It's very scary. I guess I should say almost from very beginning to end. You've got a few minutes at the beginning where it's just setting the table with characters and the story, and then it starts getting scary pretty early on. It makes excellent use of tension and suspense to terrify the audience. This is not a film that has a lot of monsters jumping out of the shadows at you. This is a film where you see things happen in the shadows and you say, did I see what I just thought I saw? Or you definitely see something in the shadows and you jump because what you see is not supposed to be there. There is very little in the way of blood and gore in this film. Now, there is some at the end when things start going completely haywire, but up until that point, not very much, if any, blood and gore. You will spend the entire film jumping, though, because of subtle things in the shadows that should not be there. There's supposed to be 3 figures in the hallway. Why am I seeing 4? What is that thing I'm seeing in the shadows behind me? Why did that clown doll that's head doesn't turn suddenly turn its head? And so on and so on. Now, it does get chaotic at the end. It's a found footage film, and at the end you have kind of a breakdown in order at the haunted house and people panicking and running. So naturally the cameras are chaotic and bouncing around, and that is realistic. Not necessarily a lot of fun to watch, at least for me. But that aside, this is an outstanding film, one I do recommend highly, Hell House LLC.
It's moving around by itself. Camilla got in touch with a medium. We learned from her that a 7-year-old girl named Annabelle Higgins had died in this apartment.
Firstly, there's no such thing as Annabelle, and there never was.
We gave her permission to move into the doll.
Wait, you did what?
It's something inhuman.
It's something that's never walked the earth in human form. It's something demonic.
Usually I stay away from big budget mainstream releases on this show, but I do want to talk about The Conjuring just because it is such a good film. It is not just a great horror movie, but a great film all around. Now, historically, I have not had as much interest in ghosts and supernatural type films as I have with creature features and slasher serial killer films. And The Conjuring is really the film that brought me around on ghosts and supernatural, and I've watched a lot of ghost and supernatural movies since watching The Conjuring because it was such a great film, and it really presented that subgenre of horror to me in a great way that made me want to watch more of them. It is well written, it is well acted, there are well-developed, likable characters, and there is a creepy ghost story, and it's all rolled into one package, and also it looks great on screen, and the sound is great, so it's just technically a great film as well. It introduces a terrifying version of the Annabelle doll that you may have read about. Now, it does little with her beyond the opening scene, but it does set the stage for an entire universe, which includes several films directly about the Annabelle doll. So this serves as the starting point for an entire horror movie universe with 3 Conjuring films to date, 3 Annabelle films to date, and The Curse of La Llorona. In addition, they are working on additional sequels, so fantastic series, The Conjuring. Most of you have probably seen it, but if not, I recommend it highly. Don't be put off by the fact that it is a mainstream release. It is very, very good. Okay, we've talked about slashers and serial killers. We've talked about ghosts and supernatural. Let's take a few minutes to talk about some creature features.
Hey, who's messing with me? Is that you, Gary?
Oh, shit. Nope. Mm-mm. No. No. Nope. Oh, shit! Oh, fuck! Run!
A film you might be surprised to see in this list, and a film you may or may not even consider a creature feature, is one we talked about last season called Brightburn. Now, I like this film a lot, and so I wanted to talk about it tonight. Brightburn is not a conventional creature feature. It's more of a dark superhero film centered around an alien adopted by a rural family. It's basically a dark spin on the Superman origin story, but technically, since he's not human, I consider this a creature feature, even though he does appear human. It is produced by James Gunn, who directed the Guardians of the Galaxy films, so it's produced by a competent professional, so it's a really well-made film, although it might be one that you didn't see. It was not a gigantic budget release, but it's very well done. It's a well-made film that looks great on screen, and it's well-paced. It keeps the story moving. And there are spooky moments to this film, even though it is more of a dark superhero film, and you got a taste of that in the clips we showed just a moment ago. Now, the one downside to this film for me is that the cast is a little too familiar. The movie stars, for example, Elizabeth Banks. And I love Elizabeth Banks, and everyone loves Elizabeth Banks, but because everyone loves Elizabeth Banks, she's been in everything ever made on TV and movies. And when you see her, it's a little harder to immerse yourself in the film because part of your brain is saying, hey, there's Elizabeth Banks. Similarly, the boy's father is played by the guy that played Roy on The Office. You're going to recognize him. You're going to recognize the guy from Breaking Bad. So it's going to be a little harder to immerse yourself in this film just because the cast is so familiar.
Baker team, we place you 80 meters south of valve 2.
Let's go!
One of my guilty pleasure favorites is a 1988 film called The Blob. It's a remake of the 1950s version starring Steve McQueen. It is one of my favorites from the VHS golden age of the 1980s. We talked about it in the first season of Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat. It has a huge cast of likable characters, many of whom do not make it to the end of the film, so it gives you a feeling of real stakes. In a way, it kind of reminds me of the old Irwin Allen disaster movies of the 1970s, where you had this all-star cast, and you knew not all of them were going to make it to the end. But this film doesn't feel kind of hokey or campy like some of those films did, where it was kind of like, okay, you know nothing's really happening to any of these people. You will feel bad about what happens to some of the people in this film. You're going to like them, you're going to root for them, and when it doesn't work out for some of them, you're going to feel very sad about it. It is not a predictable film. It is not a formulaic film. It does not stop at the boundaries set by conventional horror film taboos. Now, I'm not going to talk specifically about what happens. That made me write that because it's a spoiler, but just let me say that, you know, you have the list of people who are normally victims in creature features, and you have the list of people who are normally safe from becoming victims in horror films. Nobody is safe in this film. Nobody. Shawnee Smith is just fantastic in this film. She's a great kick-ass character. She's a heroine, but it's not just a male character played by a woman, so it's not what you've seen so many of in modern films where they just write a hero and gender swap it and have a woman play a role that a man would have played.
What's happening? Wait, come on! Come back! Back up! You haven't got enough rope! Down! Turn around!
Another film we've talked about on my show that I really love is The Descent. This, in my mind, is one of the best creature features ever made. It manages to play on your fear of the dark and your fear of small spaces at the same time. It's a film about a group of women who go spelunking down into a cave, become trapped down there, and discover that there's something alive down there with them. It is a great all-female cast. There's only one male character in the film. He's only in like the first 5 minutes of the film, and he only has like 2 lines of dialogue because this is like a girls' outing that goes awry down in the cave. The creatures in this film are genuinely frightening. They are really terrifying. The creature effects are really well done. It is filled with tension and scares. You got a taste of that from the clips we showed just a moment ago. And it just looks fantastic on screen. I cannot say enough good things about this film. If you have not seen The Descent, I recommend it highly. It spawned one mediocre sequel. I don't necessarily recommend that you watch the sequel. I would stay away from it. It's not bad, but you know, it's not great either. And it's not going to make you appreciate the first film more. So I'm of the opinion just stay away from the sequel. But The Descent, absolutely watch. It's available through a number of streaming services for free. I can't say enough good things about this film.
Go ahead, what are you waiting for?
sweethearts are about to happen. Clear!
Clear. You can't talk about Steve the Cat's favorite horror movies without talking about John Carpenter's 1982 remake of The Thing. It is probably the greatest creature feature of the 80s, if not all time. That is my personal opinion. That's not an attempt to troll people. It is one of the seminal films of the VHS era. If you're going to watch 5 films from the VHS era of horror, the 1982 version of The Thing has to be one of them. It's a showcase of practical special effects, and many of those practical special effects even hold up really well, even today in the year 2022, 40 years later. It generates a lot of tension throughout, since you never know who is who in this film. And it has a terrific cast, and it's just entirely well acted from beginning to end. And the great news is it managed to avoid unnecessary sequels until the year 2011, when somebody tried to make one. And in fairness, they at least tried to make a prequel and not a sequel to The Thing, but still, it didn't work that well. And the thing is, viewed in a vacuum, it wasn't a terrible film. It wasn't a bad film. It was decent. I won't say it was great, but it was decent. But when you compare it to the 1982 version of The Thing, it just falls way, way short. Can't say enough good things about John Carpenter's remake of The Thing from 1982. Recommend it highly. You should watch it. And with that, we're going to wrap up this Halloween night episode of Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed it. Of course, we always love to hear from you, so feel free to sound off in the comments about some of your own favorites or anything else that comes to mind. As always, if you did enjoy the show, please give us a like and a share. The best thing you can do to help us out is to share this video. If you want to stay up to speed on our latest videos and other goings-on, you can follow us and subscribe on social media. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook. Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat is available exclusively through PBDC TV, your nightly heartbeat of horror. If you're interested in horror movies, true crime, creepy history, or unexplained events, we're sure to have a show for you. You can find us at psychobunnydc.com, and we're also on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and Rumble. We also have a 100% Zuckerberg-free Discord site. If you would like to check it out, just head on over to psychobunnydc.com and click the link for an invitation. We're back again next week, and this time we're really going to do that found footage exorcism film that I mentioned a few weeks ago. It's going to be a great show, so we hope to see you then. But in the meantime, everyone have a great week and stay safe. We'll see you again soon. Good night, everybody.